Just getting on here. Trying to get Minister Andre on here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hopefully the camera picture looks good and the sound is right. Let me know in the comments that you can hear me. So I'll just wait for Andre to get on here. I think I got all the topics in the subject line. If you want some more information about Ahmaud Arbery, you can go to IBelieveTemple.com. And what I did is I made a blog post entitled "At That Time Is Near." So it's called "At That Time Is Near." And I put in there all the articles and videos from the news reporting that I found. And one of the most complete articles that I seen was from the Atlanta Journal. I think it was, or AJC.com. And they gave a ton of information and specifics on how all of this has played out so far. So I'll just hold on until Andre gets on here. Where is he? Andre is MIA. So I think he just got on here now.
Well, hello, Brandon Allen.
We in here. We in here.
We in here.
I was like, where is he?
I didn't get the notification that you were live. So I just had to go to your page and see, and then I saw that you were on. So I guess sometimes Facebook will let you know. You get a notification. Sometimes a notification will come in, sometimes it won't. So
was it but you could see it, so that means it's right as far as like the privacy setting, like it's on public, right?
yeah, it's on you. So being that you went live, it's gonna automatically be public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I'm a guest, so some of my friends hopefully my friends will come in and see that I'm a guest on your live. Because this is your live today.
How's my my photo?
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. Okay. Laura?
Hallelujah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a few people on. Hello. I'm not sure if you are on. Let us know who you are if you want to. So welcome to our very, very, very much needed discussion. My name is Andre Brooks, and I'm here with Prophet Brandon Allen. What I want to say is that we will probably be on here um, for for the coming weeks. So what we'll be discussing today is the death of Ahmaud, as I'm sure you all know about. I see Rob Rhodes just joined. Hello, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What's up,
and
y'all? And my friend Gino's on here too. Gino Phillips.
okay, okay.
Shout out to Gino.
Um, Okay, we'll be discussing Ahmaud, the death of Ahmaud in Brunswick, Georgia. We'll also be discussing something that I brought up to Brandon's attention. There was an article that I read, it happened a few weeks ago, of a man, a white man, that walked into a California grocery store in a KKK mask.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be discussing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and San Diego is where I'm from. And we will also be discussing a movie that Brandon watched, The Extraction. And we'll be
Mm-hmm.
discussing the details of what that can take, what toll that can take on someone on the inside,
Mm-hmm.
internally. And then we'll also be discussing the TV show by Tyler Perry, Ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Brandon had a very deep discussion on that show, and we'll be giving our intake on that show. And also, that's another show that can really take a toll on how someone can take things internally and things that we take inside of ourselves and how that can manifest in our daily lives.
Yes.
So let's go to Ahmaud. Let's talk about Ahmaud.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and start, Brandon.
Okay, so I almost cut you off earlier, but I didn't because you said the death of Ahmaud, and I wanted to scream murder, you know. And so
Yeah.
really, that's what it was. It was a murder. And so I said this before you came on, but people have joined since then. So if you go to IBelieveTemple.com, I posted on my prophetic voice, and it's my blog, and the title of it is "At That Time Is Near." So I give some scripture, and I posted all the media that I found to resonate with me, and all the videos and the mainstream reports, and also Roland Martin had a few good, conversations about it. And there's just a lot of details. And Minister Andre and I was in prayer about like what should we say regarding this, because we could say a whole lot. Um, and this is one of those situations. If you just know it, you just know it. Like if you feel it, you just feel it. And
Yeah. Hey,
I
David Cook. I see you. I see you, David.
Hey, David. And so when I look at this, to me, it was clearly a murder. And then, like I said, I posted the articles on there on my blog, and they go into detail about basically how they tried to cover this all up. It was the film, this happened, I believe it was in February, and the police had the film the entire time. And it wasn't until they released it, and then there was a public outrage that the arrests were made. And to me, this is a situation that's too often, that happens too often in a country where we are native born, where this is our country as well. And so I think I prayed about, and something that Andre and I talked about was like educating people on these certain things and the cost and the weight. Um, I don't know if Tanika Ragland is still on here, but yeah, she's on here. Hey Tanika, and so like she's somebody who definitely understands, and we've had conversations before about the weight of just being a melanated person, and that you can. I don't think, and now I think I'm getting the words. I'm getting the words because we prayed, and I'm getting the words because we meditated on it. But the thing is, you can't help somebody understand this if you don't get it. You can't help if you can. The president himself. I'm not going to disrespect the president, but I am going to talk about what he said. He said like what I'm interested to see what happened outside the video. But to me, in my perspective, there's enough in the video that shows you that it was a murder. Who cares what happened outside of what we saw? What we saw was a vehicle and a truck. And obviously somebody driving that vehicle was filming, and two men with guns, and there was a tussle for the gun, and then he was shot. But to me, it looked like they hunted him down like a wild animal, like a gorilla. And we are shown this constantly, constantly. And I believe the witchcraft of it all is that we're always shown this stuff around election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
that racism takes a rise. And this wasn't the only murder of a black man, but these seem to happen in strings. You know, there was another car accident where somebody got in a fender bender, and it was a white guy
Mm-hmm.
and a black person, and he murdered him. I think shot him 4 times or something like that. And then
I
even
read that article.
and then
Mm-hmm.
there was the other one where the guy pointed a gun at police. But isn't it not interesting or interesting when it happens to be a melanated person? Most often it seems like the attitude of eliminate the threat is the cause. Like eliminate the threat, pow, 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 pow. Like shooting somebody as if they are in war. Like there's not an attempt to apprehend the subject or suspect. It's always eliminate the threat, meaning murder, meaning kill.
Okay.
So you could have
And
shot, they could have shot him in the knee or the ankle or taser or whatever. But go ahead, like.
yeah, yeah, I really like that perspective. And what I will also say is before I even go into, in addition to what Brandon has said, is that where Ahmaud was murdered was 45 minutes from where I was from, where I
Mm,
lived.
mm,
I lived in Blackshear, Georgia.
mm.
Hey, Stephanie. Stephanie lives in Patterson. She's back on live with us after we did
Hey,
our
Stephanie.
test run.
Yeah.
And so for me, I lived 45 minutes away from Brunswick. So this hits home a little bit for me.
Hmm.
Brunswick, Georgia is 45 minutes from Blackshear, Georgia, where I lived in my teenage years after my mother passed and I joined the military. So hearing about this really, really hurt me in a lot of ways. And I, I, for me, it's a murder that really affected me a lot. And I want to go into what I actually saw in the video. So, um, and I was speaking to Rob, and Rob just asked a really good question. So we're going to get to your question, Rob, in a moment. Um, the part that got me, and I told Rob actually about this, was when you look at the video, for those who have watched the video, I believe that the person that was recording the video had something to do with the murder of Ahmaud.
Yes.
Because when you look at the start of the video, you don't even see Ahmaud until the driver rounds the corner.
Right.
So you don't even see Ahmaud. So and what was eerie to me about this was that the person recording, I didn't feel remorse from him. I didn't hear him say, "Oh no, what's going on?" or "Oh my goodness." It just seemed like it was very planned. And that's just a perspective that I'm providing
Hmm.
due to what is being recorded.
Right.
And what was recorded was a man driving a vehicle, his camera recording something, and then as soon as he drives around the corner, you see Ahmaud running. So for the recorder, I'm talking. Let's not even go to the two that
Okay.
killed him. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the person recording
Yeah.
said nothing. There was no like, oh my God, like why are they hurting him? And then no reaction to the gun coming out, no
Mhm.
reaction to the shooting happening, no reaction to the person in the back of the truck. Like
Right.
there was just so many different things going on. I was like,
Hmm.
so did the person or did the person have anything to do with it, or did the person already know like, oh, these two people are going to go after this person? They
Right.
may not have known he was going to get killed, but sure enough knew that something was going down.
Hmm.
So, or was this person following Ahmaud to try to figure out where this person was running to? So it does beg into question what did happen prior to the recording, because they are valid questions. So I'm not going to question someone for saying, oh, well, what happened prior to?
Hmm.
Yes, what happened prior to does draw to that, but at the end of the day, Ahmaud did not deserve to be murdered. So
Right.
let's just say, so I'm going to go back and say, let's say Ahmaud did break into somebody's home. Let's say
Right.
Ahmaud did, was trespassing on somebody's property.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, fine. Did he deserve to be murdered though?
Right.
Because he
Yeah.
was running.
Yeah.
So were the authorities called when this person was allegedly trespassing? Was the authorities called when? So there's so many missing pieces to this.
Hmm.
And like I said, there's a right to ask what happened prior, but let's get back to him being murdered.
Hmm.
He had no weapon.
Right.
So So there's all these things going on. It's like, well,
Mhm.
did he deserve to be murdered though?
Mhm.
So that's my take. Like the recording, that it was eerie that the person recording didn't say a word. It's just
Right.
literally no commentary from the recorder. And that blew my mind more than anything. I'm like, ooh. And
Mhm.
then when you start the video, there is no Ahmaud in sight until he rounds that corner. And I'm familiar with that road too. The road that he was on,
Mhm.
I've rode with my family through that road. So it's a very familiar street. Even the address of where the individuals lived, I'm familiar with those roads as well.
Okay.
So I'm just like, oh my. So anyway, that was my main thing. So
Mhm.
let's talk about what Rob said. So Rob says, what are your thoughts on the support the two men are receiving in reference to the killing? Their stance is that there was a lot of crime in their neighborhood, and Ahmaud fit the description.
Okay. I mean, I think that is the common denominator, you know? Like I've had people who I work with who said that they think that black people commit more crimes. So I think that is the reason why I brought up it's not bad to question what happened outside the video. But to me,
Mm-hmm.
if your first response is what happened outside the video after you've watched it, I think there's a problem there. There's a disconnect
Yeah,
there.
there's a problem there. Mm-hmm.
There's a problem.
I
And
agree
so
with that.
I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with saying like look outside the video. But for this person to match the description, like, is that true? Is that true? I don't know. Like, has there been? And I haven't looked it up yet, but I was gonna look up crime statistics in that area because that it, to me feels like something that anybody could say because that's the narrative in American society that for a lot of people or for some people that black people commit more crimes. So if that be the case, then it will be so easy to be dismissive and to put that narrative into why and the justification on why he was murdered because they also because every time look okay let me give an equation let me compare two things so Brock Turner the rapist right
Yeah.
admitted to it and all that what was the judge's response to him like and the leniency of we've seen it multiple times in these high profile cases where there was leniency given to white American males. And when it's a person of color, it's not the same. I mean, we could go there's so many cases like the Botham Jean case. We can go over and over and over again. There's way too many names, which is why, it was heavy for me and I had to think about, okay, do I want to educate people? Because there's so many cases and so many specifics where if you cannot see, all you got to do, anybody right now, go Google kids for cash. There was a judge who was caught sending black and brown kids to jail in order to receive government funding or funding from the prison. Like so it has been shown and proven ultimate multiple times that our justice system is slanted towards black and brown people. If we go back to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and the super predators and the three strikes you're out, those things existed in black and brown neighborhoods and contributed to the prison industrial complex that we have today. And it also created the privatized prisons, which our tax dollars go to support the mass incarceration of black and brown people. And then
Okay.
like there's also been multiple reports of police and FBI and the Department of Justice come out saying that there's been whistleblowers who come out saying that they were told not to patrol white neighborhoods, but to overly
Mm-hmm.
patrol the black and brown neighborhoods because that's where all the crime
Right.
is. If we look at
Yes.
Bloomberg, if we look at Giuliani, so there's so much, and I feel myself getting woo, but there's so much that we could talk about in reference to this that led to this point. That led to this.
Yeah. And we got some more questions coming in. So
Yeah.
I wanna tackle them. Hey Chris, I'm now seeing you. I see my SLC buddy Berthany's on. These are my friends, not
Okay.
yours. I'm just playing. Um hey Chris, I love you too so much. Najeli's on. Hey
Yeah.
Najeli. So I want to answer Chris's
Hold on,
question if you're still.
let me shout out my people real quick. So
Yeah, shout out your people too. Shout out your people too.
I got Trey Conway, Jim Cassidy out there in DC, Patrick Montoya, he was in the Army, Quez DeMont, Apostle R.L. Montgomery, Najeli, I see her on here. And then, yeah, then your question with Chris.
So Chris says, hopefully you're still on, Chris. It says, Andre, do you know why the shooter was no longer connected with law enforcement prior to the shooting? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Did he receive any complaints or discipline during his time in law enforcement?
I need to look that up.
I actually heard about I think Rob may have told me that he's a prior police officer, the one that shot him.
Yes, he is.
So I think that's why Chris is asking that. And then Najeli says something too. You know, Jelly, has a lot to say. So let me see. Najeli said there's a new report that says that the neighborhood didn't have any reports of break-ins for 2 months before the incident. See, that's Najeli doing her research. Okay. I love it. Yeah. And then David, my buddy, said this is a very sensitive subject. I definitely agree this was a straight up murder. My question is, was it race related? And if so, how do you prove that? I see Lucas. Hey, Lucas. I see you're watching. And then Najeli says also to take into consideration that Georgia is one of 4 states without a hate crime law. Oh, that's good too. Did not know that. That's really good. So I want to answer Chris's question, then I'm going to answer David's question.
Okay.
So Chris asked, prior to the shooting, did he receive any complaints or discipline during his time in law enforcement? That's something that I don't know if that can be looked up online on Google if there's complaints. I think you can. I think that's like public information. So I'm going to guess that yes, there were some complaints, because I think in order to take something into your hands and murder somebody in broad daylight, I'm gonna assume that there was some he's been reprimanded for something. It had to be, because I don't feel that someone that murders someone in broad daylight who's running, you're in a vehicle, so you're in a vehicle and you're running, and the other person is running, so there's no barrier. There's a barrier. The barrier is the vehicle. So you're in your vehicle, he's running. So and this Ahmaud had no weapon. So yeah, like I'm gonna assume that there were some complaints in the past. But I want to answer David's question. So David, I want you to kind of expand a little bit more on, well, not expand more, but I want you to think about this. The reason why this is race related is because when you think about all the different things that come on in the media when it comes to crime, hate crime, I'll say what Najeli said, hate crime. Black men are disproportionately killed way more than the white counterpart, by cops. And I'm gonna say cops because this man that killed Ahmaud was a prior cop. So once a cop, always a cop. I mean, he's not working in law enforcement anymore, but this is a prior cop who killed Ahmaud. And there's just been too many situations that have come up, too many unfortunate circumstances where a Black person was killed for no reason. I'm not even gonna say the name right. I'm gonna mess up her name, but there was a Black woman killed her in her own home. A white man shot this.
Was it Atiana Jefferson?
Atiana Jefferson, yes. She's in Fort Worth. Yes, she got killed just for being in her house and trying to see who's looking out her window, who's in her front backyard. So there's too many cases. So I feel like it was racially driven. I do feel it was racially driven. I do, and there's many more. I'm not even gonna go into. I mean, I know all the situations. I just don't know their names, sadly. But it's been too many. It's been too many cases where Black people have been killed, and I hate to point it out, but by white cops.
Yes.
It's been too many cases of it.
And where also black
And
cops
they're
have been,
unarmed on top of that.
well, and also times where black cops have been on the scene or involved as well, like with Freddie Gray. Like there are way too many to name and to go into a conversation that really just leads into an ultimate level of frustration and trying to prove something to somebody who don't want to believe you anyway. So, you know, I think another way we know that this is based on race is the response of it.
The response of it.
The response,
Yes.
and that this guy was there is a blue line, and that he was an ex-cop, and he had everybody on lock, from the DA, different lawyers. I think it's interesting that Alan Tucker was the defense lawyer who leaked the tape. And before I got more information, my first initial response was like, why would he do that? And I thought it was a negative thing. But let's even go back to, his name is Brian Williams, or William Bryan, whatever. I didn't see if it was which way it was, but that is the person who recorded the tape. Is it not crazy that if we didn't have this tape, then the case may have never made it to the national level? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a catch 22. It's like I've seen a lot of people who don't want to watch the video, and then there's people who didn't want to watch it, but in order to speak about it, they had to. Different journalists and different reporters, and it's
It's
like
heavy.
it
It's
is
heavy.
very heavy. And I think in order to speak on it, like, you kind of do have to watch the video, and then we look at the response, and there's all these other examples. That's science, right? Like, if you do a test, if you do an experiment and you get the same results over, that those theories then become facts. And those are the facts. Like, these things continue to happen, and
Yeah.
we continue to talk about them.
So Najeli says the fact that two DAs had to recuse themselves from the investigation due to their prior relationship with the killer, from him being an investigator for the DA's office. We getting comments coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Let me read Najeli's again. The fact that two DAs had to recuse themselves from the investigation due to their prior relationship with the killer, from him being an investigator for the DA office after being a cop.
Yeah.
And then the police department had the video since the day of the murder. And
Mm-hmm.
then Jim Cassidy said, exactly, without the release of this video, it would just be another day in Georgia. And
Yes.
yes, I agree, Jim. So, and to add to what Jim just said,
Mm-hmm.
my heart is broken even more that it took 2 months for us to even know
Right.
that he was killed. He was killed in February. So this
Mm-hmm.
makes it even more racially related,
Mm-hmm.
because we finding out 2 months after he's dead and gone for 2
That
months
the,
now,
that the
going on 3
immediate
months.
Yes, and I would add to that the immediate response was, how can we protect these two men who committed murder on video? And as Najeli said, they had the police, they had the video recording the day the murder happened. One of my friends on Facebook said this: since we going there, let's just go there. Like,
Hey,
I wanted
Jeremy, I see you. Hey,
I wanted
Jeremy.
to bring out like some of the things that other people might be saying. So one of my friends, she's a black female, she said there was a time in our history that white people would go to witness lynchings to take pictures, to make postcards out of them, cut off body parts to send them to their family members and friends as a keepsake.
Ooh.
That is what's happening in 2020 around the circulation of video of murdered black people by white people. It feels a keepsake, momentous occasion, a celebration. And I can say that to some aspects, I shared the sentiment of the video being circulated, because when I look at murders, like when it comes to things like this, they don't usually parade around. That was my initial response about the video. Like, this is being paraded around. Like, did the defense attorney, because I didn't know that he leaked the video, Alan Tucker leaked the video, and then said, I'm not representing y'all.
Right.
So I
And
didn't know
Jim
that.
just said, and so Jim said something too. He said there are now pictures out showing the father at a KKK rally.
Okay.
So David, I'm just putting it out there. My friend David, he was at a KKK rally. So what was he doing at a KKK rally? I mean, if that doesn't let you know that this was racism, I don't know. I mean, but I understand your perspective, David, because he's looking at it more like, what if this was a white man? Would he have shot the white man? If how do you prove the individual shooter would not have done it the same thing to a white man if he fit the description of an apparent burglar? So, but yeah, so, and that's a very valid question, David, but it's racially driven. Well, being at a KKK rally really just answers that question, honestly. So, I mean, but to add to that, regardless to him being at a KKK rally or not, I just want to put emphasis on a black man with no weapon on him at all, running. There's so many different ways to address something. Like I said earlier, if he did peek in people's homes, if he did break in, regardless to the actions of what this man did, to be murdered is a no-go. Right. Because what if it was why couldn't it have been a conversation? And no, you murdered him. Yes. But you murdering him is like, well.
Yes. So, and I guess what I would love to ask him is, what made you think that this person didn't deserve the right to a trial, the right to the judicial, I can't even say it, the judicial process, right? Like what made him think that, you know what, I'm gonna chase this person down, make a citizen's arrest? Obviously, they rolled up with guns. So we know what
you rolled up. You already knew.
Yeah. So we know that there is a thought process based on that.
Some intent to that. There's some intent to that.
Yeah, intent, and that they also may have been afraid because the father was in the truck with his 6-shooter. It looked like, you know, he was in the truck with his 6-shooter. The son was on the ground with his long-range rifle. If the son had a handgun, it probably wouldn't have been no tussle. And so we don't know, when people say what also happened before the video, we don't know if they tried to stop him prior to, and then got in the truck and chased him down and stopped, like, you know, half a mile ahead of him when he was running that way or something. We don't know what that looked like. We just see the recorder, Brian Williams, roll up, you know. But my question is, what made them think that he didn't deserve the right to a trial? If you expect this person to be a robber, a criminal, and matching the description, when Jelly said there was not evidence of break-ins 2 months before reported, 2 months before the incident, if that is the case, why did you not allow the police to handle it? And why don't you want to get the bad guy off the street?
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying. And that goes back to what I said earlier about the video recording. I'm looking at the analytics of how the video was recorded. I'm looking from a neutral standpoint that this man, there's another man, not the 2 individuals involved in the murder. I'm talking about the one recording. It's like, who typically puts their phone on up next to the steering wheel and records while driving on the road? So if you think about the craziness of that, of just this a third person that's recording, and then they're quiet. They ain't said a word. There's no, oh my God, like what's going on, or no yelling to stop it or to prevent it or to no defense for anybody, no nothing. Just I'm just recording. So this is another day in Brunswick, Georgia, and here I am just recording. Like, that is eerie. It was so eerie to me. Like, what in the like, what is going on? Like, that blew me away more than anything. So Jim says, exactly, they acted as cop, judge, and jury, basically. Yeah, they did. Yes, David, no reason to be shot in the street and in broad daylight. Like, the comfortable, the ease this people had in just killing this man in broad daylight is also appalling. So Rob has a long post.
Before that, Jim Cassidy said, who did the recording? Has that come out? Yes, it was
it's come out.
Brian Williams. They initially, after the video, this is what's interesting, after the video came out, he's now being investigated as a suspect as well. But the police had the video from the day that the murder happened. And then the reason why we have the video in the public now is because Alan Tucker was going to be their defense attorney. He leaked the video, I want to say after, because he was going to represent them. Then he leaked the video and said, no, I'm not going to represent you all. That's how
Because
public.
the evidence looks too, it looks too organized to me.
Yes.
It looked too organized to have a man that's driving the truck, recording from their windshield, recording from their driver's seat, and as you go around the bend, then you see Ahmaud, and then you see this truck where there's two men dealing with Ahmaud. So I'm like, what? And it was too eerie to me. So I hope you get a chance to see that video for the ones that are asking. So Rob, so this is what Rob said. Rob got a lot to say too. I have a very diverse social media. I logged on yesterday to see many Blacks with negative posts on their hatred for white privilege. I then see posts from whites that are frustrated that it's always a narrative of race when Black is killed. These posts get intense and I end up logging out. Do you feel that social media is causing racial wars online, or are these posts making them worse than the hate crimes? So it's a two-part answer to that for me. So Black, because he said Blacks are the hatred for white privilege. So there's a two-part answer to that. So I'll say from my standpoint, for Blacks to speak out on white privilege, hate is a strong word. I don't use the word hate. I don't hate anybody, but white, Black, whatever. So I feel like Black people are frustrated with it, and it's understandable. Listen, I'm Black. We Black. Yeah. But I'm frustrated, but I will never say that I have a hatred towards white people because they have white privilege. But I will definitely, as long as the judicial system is correct by prosecuting these people, that justice for Ahmaud is what I'm saying. So for me, it's more in terms of the white people have white privilege. That's just the unfortunate reality in this. White people have white privilege. That said, it is what it is. Yeah. But I will never say that I hate somebody for it. So, but I cannot blame Black people for expressing their disdain for white people doing things and getting away with it, or letting 2 months go by before now he's arrested. Because basically, us U.S. citizens is what it has exposed these people, which is why those two got arrested. And then to the white people saying that, and then Rob said that he sees white people saying that they're frustrated because the narrative is always about race when a Black is killed. The media does have some to do with it. But at the end of the day, we're looking at the actions of what's going on. If you really look, the actions of white people killing Black people, it's what's happening. Yeah. If it wasn't happening, then there would be nothing for the media to talk about, if that makes sense. If there were not white people killing Black people for no reason, right, at all, then we wouldn't be having these conversations. We would just be going on about our merry lives. So that's the bigger picture. I don't want social media to be, I mean, it is kind of the cause for racial wars. It is, unfortunately. I just hope that everyone is, I disagree with I mean, a part of it is, it's causing where there is hatred amongst people, where we need to be coming together is what I mean. I don't know. Like, can I interject? Or no? Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. I don't think that social media is the cause of it. I celebrate the fact that social media gets the information to more people. I think what causes the animosity is the denial of each other's experience. And really, like we learned in EOA school, white male is the majority no matter what. Remember that? Remember they taught us that in school? So by the white male majority, there's a denial of the experience of Black Americans. That is the source. So no matter if it was on news or CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or whatever, the source of the angst comes from the disagreement from the majority about denying what we actually saw on the video. There's always an outside thing. Like, look, my hand is in the camera right now. You can see it, right? Now it's outside.
but there's always a comment from or a thought of the outside. In other words, like the black person had to be doing something because an ex-cop or white people ain't just murdering black people for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there
Well,
has to be. So
so
it comes, I believe it comes from, no matter what the source would be, it comes from the denial of the experience of the reality of what it's like to be a melanated person in America. That's my belief.
okay, and I mean, and I don't disagree with that. I think that what Rob is saying that is that there are racial wars online though, and social media is the brunt of it. So that's why I say that when you said animosity, that is equivalent to a war going on, because there is a disagree. There is no, one side is not really seeing the other side, and then there's no coming together to say, okay, this is what we see. These are the facts. What is the what first of all, what's the solution to it, and then
Yeah,
also holding those people accountable for their actions. So
yeah,
the white folks saying, okay, this is what it is, and the black folks saying, because the thing is that there's white people, and probably in this live, that are not racist. So
mm-hmm,
in their minds, they're like, well, what's going on? So
mm-hmm,
I have to look at it from both angles,
mm-hmm.
because there are white people that ain't trying to think about, they're not even thinking
Right,
about killing nobody black.
right.
They're everybody, those white people say, well, we're all the same, we're all
Mm-hmm,
equal, we're all
mm-hmm.
this. So it confuses them, because they're like, well, why does it have to be race driven? But they have to look a little deeper and say that it is because of race, and you have to have that empathy towards the minority and say, yes, this is a problem,
Yeah,
and this is an issue. So that, I think that's the reason why I say social media war,
yeah,
because you got white people saying, well, I'm not racist, so it doesn't have to be racially. No, 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 no. It's not about it's not your thought process being white
yes,
and not being racist. But there are racist people out there that have a motive behind why they do what they do.
right.
That's the part I was just
Yeah,
trying to convey, if
yeah,
that makes sense.
and I think we, in a lot of ways, have said the same thing.
We said the same thing, but a different way.
Yeah,
I see that Raglan, I hope I
hmm,
said her name right,
yeah.
says, what's going on is the truth about what Southern Georgia does end. The dark comes to light. Yes, absolutely. My friend James came in. It's a two-part answer.
Hey,
Jim says social media has pulled the scab off the ugliness in America. That's very true. Larry
what's
says,
up,
great
Rico
conversation,
Flowers?
brothers. Alex said, right, but ducking your head in the sand doesn't make the problem go away. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Oh,
But yeah,
Did you see what Jim Cassidy said? He said social media has pulled the scab off of the ugliness in America.
yeah, that's the reason why I said that there's social media wars,
Mm,
because black people have been saying it all along, and
mm,
now that it's been publicized that a
mm,
white person killed an innocent black man, now
mm,
white people that are not racist, I'm talking about the white folks that are not racist, they're saying, why did it got to be about race when? Because
mm,
your mindset, you're not racist, so you're automatically not going to think that it has to be racially motivated.
yeah.
No, it does. It is racially motivated.
Mm,
Very much so.
hmm.
It is.
Larry Ross says, great
Especially,
conversation, brothers. Larry Ross was one of the only black teachers I had at Westwood High School. That's the high school I went to in Mesa, Arizona. And like he had a great impact on my life and taught me about the bridge builder. I forget who wrote the poem, but basically building a bridge for the people that's coming after you and why it's important to do what we're doing, which is living out authentically, talking about
mhm.
these issues that affect us and people who look like us, and actually being willing at some level to educate people on these things. So,
I see Everett Richardson, my old boss, is on. Hello, Mr. Richardson. So I want to answer Rob's question. What are both of your definitions of the term white privilege? I'll have you go first, and then I'm gonna give mine.
okay, I think it's really simple. It's the benefit of the doubt extended and to people who are the majority. It's the majority putting themselves first and creating a system. When I think of white privilege, I don't necessarily think of white people because I think there's black people who participate in white privilege. I think it's the status quo. White privilege is the status quo. It's like, in my opinion, slavery didn't go anywhere. It just changed shape. It just changed form. Because when we look at mass incarceration, what's the difference between mass incarceration and slavery? You know, these things that when we look at things like gentrification, white privilege is the entire American system, which is set up so that I mean, we're seeing it right now. Okay, I'll make this last comment and wrap it up. So we're seeing it right now. Like the American economy is propped up by the essential worker. The essential worker is, but the essential workers, we could argue, make the lowest wage. You know, their wages are a lot lower. And so the essential worker, mostly, we probably could also say are mostly Black and brown people who make less wages. White privilege is like we learned about in EOA school when the military needed Black GIs. We need Black soldiers. So then here we go. Let's recruit them before we weren't accepting them. But guess what? After the Black GIs came back, you don't get access to the GI Bill or the VA loans or your VA government benefits that we do get now. So thank God that we get those now. But to me, that is white privilege. It's like, you know what, I'm going to make sure that only these certain level of people. White privilege is Laura Ingraham telling LeBron James to shut up and dribble, that he should just play sports. And how much money do you make? You make millions. So you should just focus on that and don't get involved in politics. To me, that's white privilege. White privilege is when a Black person commits a crime and a white person commits a crime. The first thing they do, Philando Castile, right? The first thing they try to do is discredit the Black and brown person and talk about their past criminal history. But it gets solidified because people don't want to believe the truth about police only patrolling Black and brown neighborhoods. They don't want to believe, they don't want to catch it all together. White privilege is not having to deal with the fact that people who look like you were injected with syphilis, unbeknownst to them. You know what I'm saying? White privilege is white privilege.
You going in on this definition, but I'm gonna let you keep going.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I think white privilege.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I think it's just knowing your identity. It's knowing that you can be anything that you want to be. And yes, I will not say, but I won't say that white privilege means that you ain't gonna have no challenges. I mean, I think everybody's gonna have challenges in this life, but I don't feel like there's any American who can honestly say that skin color doesn't matter and that skin color doesn't play a role on everything, from your college enrollment letter to whatever, from your the census. We have all these things. You just look at the incarceration rates, you just look at the media, the way they do exacerbate things and how these things stick, and they get people riled up to an emotional level instead of being able to analyze. But I know I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna give my little small definition of white privilege since you went in on yours. So I do love your definition of white privilege because I believe that is what white privilege is. But what I want to add to that is, from my definition of white privilege is individuals, not all white people though, because I don't want to associate white privilege to every white person, but at the same time, every white person has white privilege. It's based upon how you utilize that white privilege to look out for the minority. So for me, white privilege can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. So if you think about someone with white privilege, there's people with white privilege that abuse white privilege for their gain, and there's people with white privilege that speak out against racism, and they're an ally, and they are with the minorities. So white privilege can be used in a positive light, and then white privilege can be used negatively. So my definition is white privilege is basically people that have the power, and you see I said power, power to affect change, whether it's good or bad. That's what I think white privilege is.
I agree with you.
Because
And
there are white people, because there are white people that stand for us, honey, and we can speak on some of them folks. They
yeah,
do.
so I
They
want
stand
to
because
name drop Jane Elliott. If you don't know who Jane Elliott is, please look her up. And I feel like she's one of the people who has gone the hardest and done different experiments to get people to experience what white privilege is. And I'll just give one example of one of the things
oh,
that she did.
Jeremy, it'll be available later, Jeremy. He wanted to ask, he's got to go back to work. It will be available later,
Yeah, and
Jeremy.
that's why we chose to come to Facebook because we were on IG Live. But Jane Elliott, what she did was she in a room, I think she was at some school or university, and this video is on YouTube. And what I'll do is I'm gonna make some notes and I'll post them on like a Google Doc or something like that, and then post it on Facebook. And that way it could be like some of the things that we found out on the show. Like no reports of break-ins for the past 2 months before the incident. And Jane Elliott, and I'll put some links to her videos and stuff. But Jane Elliott had everybody in a room, and it was a room full of educators. And she said, if you want to be treated like a black person in America, like our black brothers and sisters in America, raise your hand. Nobody raised their hand.
Mm.
So she is a person who uses her white privilege to educate, and she like literally put by asking that question, she literally put people in the best way they could experience that moment. Because I can't think like if for any white person who denies the existence of white privilege, I wonder if we ask them that question, what would their response be?
Yeah, because there are white people that deny that they have white privilege, and that's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at me and say that we are viewed the same by society, then you got to check yourself because it's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to address what Larry said. He said, for those kind words, he said, yes, you two are bridge builders. The conversation needs to be held in the workplace. My
Mm-hmm.
staff has crucial conversations, and in the space I'm in, the only educated black men in that space.
Yeah.
Speak truth to my power. Speak truth to power, my brothers. Being uncomfortable is not our issue. Seek to understand the black perspective should be America's aim.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
very true. And Alex said, look at the jail sentences between cocaine, a mostly high society drug, and crack diluted cocaine sold to the blacks and brown people in the U.S. Crack users got 10 times the sentencing. That's very true as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Jane Elliott is powerful, bro. Okay, Jeremy said thanks, and then Larry posted the link or whatever to the, and then Najeli said Jane Elliott is amazing. She has been doing social experiments since the 70s, even with weekenders, school trips. This is very good insight. Thank you for providing that. But I want us to move on. So I want us to move on really, really quickly to a new topic. Thank you all for the feedback. I mean, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the KKK situation. So I don't know if you all seen the article that I saw. There's an article of a man in San Diego, California. I am from San Diego, California. So this hit home for me again. This man walked into a grocery store, white man in his mid 40s, and he walked in the store and went shopping with his KK mask on. Just walked in the store, was just leisurely going into the store with his KKK mask on shopping. And people were looking kind of confused, like, what is going on right now? And eventually the authorities were called. And basically the store manager told him that in order for you to continue shopping, you need to remove that mask. The KKK mask.
Yeah.
So
the hood, he had that hood.
San Diego, California, with a KK mask on. So I want to know y'all perspective on that. I will speak, being that I'm the one that read the article. I'm gonna give you my perspective on it. So what happened was he continued to he took off the mask and proceeded to shop. He bought his groceries and left. So he did abide by the store manager's position by telling him to take off the mask, and then he continued shopping, and then he left. What in the world is going on? We are the boldness of racist white folks that will go into a store, public place, with a KK mask on. What in the world? So my perspective on that, let's talk about white privilege. Let's go back to white privilege. This man walked into a store with a KK mask on,
Mm-hmm.
but after he was told to take it off, they didn't kick him out the store. They still allowed him to shop.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that he didn't need groceries for his house. I'm not saying that he didn't need food for his home.
Mm-hmm.
But he was wearing that was KKK mask,
Yeah.
and he took it off, and they told him he could still shop. But he basically came in there with a KKK mask on, and he was not kicked out of the store.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Let's flip that to somebody black doing something outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Would he have been kicked out of the store? I don't know.
I mean, remember the brother from Walmart? I think it was in Ohio, who was just walking around and he had the toy gun or whatever, and they called the Walmart called the police and they shot him. Didn't even give him a second. Didn't even give him no warning. Didn't even say anything, and they just shot him. So I mean,
Jim just said this Thursday there was another incident, different store, same town. A husband and wife wearing a mask with, oh, wow. And then he said it was a hood, not a mask, and he did not remove it till he was paying. Well, I mean, either way, it looks like a KKK mask. So even though it may not have been
yeah.
the actual KKK mask, if I'm looking at it as a black person, and there's two eye holes, and it's shaped like a KKK mask, honey.
No, I think he's just saying the correct terminology is a hood. It's the hood, the pointed.
Well, I call it a mask, but I mean, I call it a mask because I mean, yeah, it's a hood. It's a hood, but yeah, I call it a mask because I'm just like, ugh, like you wearing that, like why are you wearing that mask? But go ahead and continue because Najeli said something very long.
Okay, I just think there's an immediate suspicion of black and brown people in stores. How about we just go right there? My dad has been followed around in the store and like called me while he was being followed around in the store and proceeded to go like raise his voice with me on the phone as a person is following him in the store. Like, so I think, where does this suspicion come from that black and brown people are going to steal or need to be followed around in the store? So for this person to be clearly displaying all out in the open, swastikas and wearing a KKK mask or hood, for that to be.
I keep calling it a mask. My bad, y'all. I know it's a hood, but I call it a mask because of the whole like holes being in the eyes and stuff. It's not a mask. It's a hood. I know it's a hood, y'all.
So I think that goes back to my idea about white privilege being like the benefit of the doubt being extended. It's like you're automatically assumed that you're a good person, even if you got a KKK hood on, even if you got a swastika on. You're not about to get tackled by the cops immediately. You're not about to get shot for wearing that mask, but just for being you and looking how you look or looking how I look, depending on what we have on or how, like, we'll be followed around the store. Let me ask you, have you ever been followed around in the store?
I not followed, but watched very closely. I was in a jewelry store with a friend of mine, and we weren't trying to buy no jewelry, but the woman was all over us, asking if we needed help. Kind of was not like all up on us, like close, but within proximity, like we need to see what he's doing. So there was definitely an uneasiness, and this was in Alabama, where I was in the store. And she was like, "Oh, y'all don't need it." Like every 5 seconds, she was asking us if we needed it. I was like, "No, I'm just looking." I kept telling you, "I'm looking. I'm not trying to purchase." But every 5 to 10 seconds, she kept just trying to reassure that I didn't need any help. And I'm like, "God, you all up." I said, "This is the best customer service you're giving me, but I know why you're on my case because you think I'm getting ready to walk out with, or try to bum rush you and take a watch or something." Like, no, like I'm just in here. Like, stop. So,
I got a quick positive story real quick, for real, a quick one. So I went to, I was in Kentucky and Louisville, and there was a Coach shop, and I had just got a bonus, and I just went in there because I was going to buy my mom a purse. And so I wanted to think about it because, those are expensive. But I actually went in. The lady was so nice to me. And it was a older white lady, she probably was in her 40s or 50s. So not old. Sorry, that's not old because I'm close. Uh, I'm close to 40. But so she was so nice to me and didn't treat me how I expected, and she was
Hmm.
white. And so I actually went back to the store to buy the purse for my mom. And one of the motivating reasons why I did that was because how she addressed me in a high-end store. Because I've also experienced like what you're talking about jewelry and stuff like that. But I bought it because my mom, but I also went to that because I could have went to another Coach store, but I bought it from that one because of the lady's interaction with me. So that's a positive story.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Not all white people are racist or anything. So that's very important to put out. So Najeli said at the beginning of the school year, the middle school here in San Antonio, I found KKK recruiting flyers. Oh my God. In the boys' bathroom. So this is everywhere. The members are just feeling more comfortable showing it to the public because in the last few years they have been feeling validated. Well,
Mhm.
that I'm not even going to go into my thoughts on that. Alex says that's because the KKK are not considered domestic terrorists.
Mhm.
If the top if the top leadership allows it to happen, then those people are going to feel empowered to do what they want.
Mhm.
Very, very, very true.
Mhm.
Very true. And I mean, there's nothing else to say that's true. Everett, my Mr. Richardson says, understand the people who have had these beliefs have always been there and supported by the most. It has just become so popular and accepted by people that it will become normalized. Cannot compare what POC and white people will get away with because the laws were never written within POC in mind. The
Mhm.
scale is always unbalanced.
Okay. Jim Cassidy
And
said
then
they feel empowered by the current administration, and that in itself is another whole show. You right.
that's the reason why I said I ain't gonna say that. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
just leaving it alone.
then
Rob said,
Roscoe.
"My girlfriend."
Okay, go ahead.
Are you gonna read it? Okay. My girlfriend is of Spanish descent. She routinely expresses her frustrations with racial issues. It pains me that she moved to this country to be exposed to a country divided by race. How
Mhm.
do you think these issues affect the Spanish, Asian, Native community that make up the rest of the U.S. population? Ooh, I want to answer that first.
Okay,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
answer that one. So, and it affects them because they are a minority as well. That's the reason why. That, in a nutshell, it affects the Spanish, Asian, Native community because they are the minority
Mm-hmm.
along with Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we as Black people, all minorities, we're all in that same umbrella of discrimination and
Mm-hmm.
racism against us. We're automatically in it because we are the minority, and it's unfortunate because with Native Americans, we all know the story with Native Americans, they were here first. So,
Mm-hmm. I
but
think
the
it
white
brings
folks became.
I think it brings another thing. Let's go back to history too. Like so if we look at governments and banks, mainly banks really pushed the idea of white privilege. Remember that documentary that we watched in EOA school that showed,
Oh,
right? Like
mm-hmm.
when it comes, like the reason why gentrification exists today is because the banks basically, if a black or brown or Native American or whatever, if any non-white moved into a neighborhood, the prices of the housing will go down. So yes, Najeli said redlining. And so that basically
Hey,
made it to where
Starsha. Hey,
there
Dominique. I'm just saying hey to people. Sorry, I'm
was,
not interrupting you.
that's fine. So they basically made it to where now there's a financial incentive to be prejudiced, racist, however you want to define it. But so they incentivized white privilege. So I think when what races are we talking about again? Asian, Spanish, and who else did he say? Native American. Okay, when we
Native
talk,
American.
they're also minorities, right?
Bye,
So
David.
you know what they do, in my opinion. Um, there's always a temptation for Asians, Native Americans, and Spanish to join the white narrative or to identify as white. And I think sometimes, like, so I've heard the Black community or NAACP or different people say that even when all this immigration stuff was going on, right, in the last year or so, they say that all the jobs are going to the brown people or Native Americans. So there's an attempt to make us fight against one another as minorities. And so to
Mm-hmm.
get Latinos or Asians to identify as white. And so like for example, why is it that you go to the black neighborhoods and who owns all the stores? Not black folks. So is that
the NFL too? The NFL. I mean, I'm not even gonna go into the NFL, but I mean that's another one.
Yeah,
So
we don't own it, but we get to play on the field, and we don't own nothing in the hood, and that goes back to like what Najeli said, redlining, and also banks not doing business. A good movie to watch, kind of about this kind of thing, is The Banker. It's on Apple TV. If you have that.
I don't have that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or you can download it or whatever. But The Banker was a really good movie that sort of showed how basically it was not acceptable for us to move around different neighborhoods and or own properties.
Oh, okay. Okay, Everett. He said, "Don't Mister me 3000." Listen. I always knew you as my boss. Okay, Everett.
Chris Williams is a friend of
Chris
mine.
Williams said, "Thanks for the discussion." Oh, Chris says, "Jim Crow is live and well. Unfortunately, the goals remain the same as in '60s, which disenfranchising, belittling, and emasculating Black people." Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's move on, y'all, because we got two more topics, but we're gonna combine them because it's kind of dealing with the same emotion, same thing. When we started the live, I spoke about a show I watched. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Tyler Perry's Ruthless. It's on BET Plus. And it's about a cult that's going on in the show. It's about a cult of basically sexualizing men in a terrible way, raping women and sexualizing men. And there's a person in the role that's called the Highest, and he is a gay man that has been raping men, and they're in this cult like he is the highest and he is the savior. He's God. And then you can talk about your show Extraction, and then we can talk about our views on why this is a concern for us being in this pandemic and watching things like this, because this can really directly influence how we live our daily lives.
Yes. That sounds.
So talk about talk about Extraction. Yeah, talk about Extraction. I gave my little story about Ruthless.
Yeah, and I think that ties into the entire conversation. And before I do that, can I read what's name's comment?
Everett? Yeah, go ahead.
We have our own infighting just in the Black community anyway. We don't need to have conflict with other races. We can't seem to come together as a people, which helps the opposition. Agreed. And so let's wrap that in.
I said that earlier. Yeah. I said that earlier, coming together and being one instead of there's just so much strife, because they're not understanding each other. They're not trying to open up their mindset to understanding what the real issue is.
Right. And denying that and saying that we're all American, or that we all bleed red. But that's not it. If we do that, then we're not acknowledging, and we're like trying to scapegoat and go around the issues that we have. But this is a perfect, I don't know how we did that, but that was a perfect like segue into everything, because to me, media and music affects everything, and it shapes the minds and the culture of the people. So I started to watch the movie Extraction with Chris Hemsworth, the guy who played Thor. And so when I was watching this movie, I noticed it was like extra violent. And I've seen, I like action movies, the Mission Impossible. I've seen Kingsman. I've seen some movies that have violence in it. But for some reason, in my spirit, I felt that this just brought it to the next level. And what happened was I ended up stopping the movie. It got to this scene. There was the scene where Chris Hemsworth was pushing this guy's head down, and it was over a rake. And so then, so he's pushing this guy's head down, and then he just gave it one hard push, and, they don't show it, but then just blood just splatters everywhere. And after that, I was just like, oh no, I got to turn this off. And I believe in always being spiritually sensitive and pray, and I fast and read and study. And I think, what the Ruach was showing me is just reminding me that, your your eyes are the window to your soul. Like whatever you're taking in is going directly into your mind and into your spirit, and it has an effect. Even if we just say it's just entertainment, or oh, I just like this ratchet music or whatever, that is playing a role, especially if you're playing it constantly. If all I do is watch John Wick and movies like Extraction and fill my head with that, it's going to have a profound effect on me. And people have studied this. Go look up I want to say Edward Burns, and TV. It's called television programming. These things are designed for you to be a certain way. Perfect example, and then you talk because I've been talking. Perfect example. When I had to repent because when I was at Georgia Tech University as an Army ROTC instructor, we were right next to the foreign exchange students, and I watched all the news sources, and I had seen this Muslim person, and she was in the full thing to where you could just see, her eyes, and in my head, like something in my brain thought, oh, there's ISIS. And so what I had to do was, yes, I was like, I caught myself and I was like, you know what, that is crazy. Like, where did that thought come from? That's not how I conduct myself. I speak to everyone I spoke to everyone at the foreign exchange thing and like was friends with them, was kind to them. But why did the thought even come into my imagination that that's what ISIS is? Let me tell you why. Because our movies have painted Muslims to be terrorists. And then not just our movies, but like the wars and all these things. And so those things are affecting us, which ties into the whole idea of white privilege, the whole idea of Black bodies being murdered. It ties into the whole thing. Like the picture that we have of our society is largely determined by our experiences, and especially when our experiences are solidified in negative ones. When what we see on television is our interaction with other Black people, because there are Black people who participate in white privilege, who are like, you need to pull your pants up, and I agree with those things, like pulling your pants up and looking a certain way, being presentable. I agree with that, but guess what? That's still not going to make me say that somebody should be murdered because they look like that. And this also ties into how men and how people in American society view women. And that's another topic we could talk about enough. But
we could bring that up next week. We re-engage next week.
Yeah, like sexualizing, like you said with the show, sexualizing men and women. And I would never say that because somebody was dressed a certain way that they should, that they deserve what they got. But we have had American politicians say that though.
Yeah. So to add to your point about sexualizing, so with Ruthless in particular, what disturbed me and what made me cut it off, because Tyler Perry is phenomenal. So shout out to Tyler Perry. He's amazing. Director, writer, producer, he do everything. But this show Ruthless really bothered me. And I had to stop at episode 7. So this is a new show that just came out. I have Amazon Prime and it's through BET. So I stopped at episode 7 because, and I don't want to give too much away. I mean, I don't encourage to watch it because I stopped. So I don't want to say watch the show. Yes. But if you do want to watch the show, watch it. If you have BET Plus. But what bothered me was, in my mind, I looked at the highest as the devil. I literally looked at the highest as a demon. And then and when I looked at him, I envisioned the vision I had was men being raped for the demon's sexual pleasure, but the women being raped to produce more children. That's literally what Ruthless was about. Ruthless was about, and the cult that I saw on the show was that the women were raped, like with no consent, to produce children. And of course to produce boys, essentially boys. And then the men were raped unwillingly because the highest, who was viewed the highest, was raping men because he was sexually attracted to them. So for me, I said, this is too much. I can't deal with this anymore. And I cut it off. So that was the root reason why I wanted to talk about, me and Brandon wanted to talk about shows that we watch can mess up our thought processes, the
Mm-hmm.
way we think, the way we handle things, what is put into our spirit. Like it could just, it's all this negativity and turmoil and
Yes.
sadness and
Mm-hmm.
strife, and I mean there's so many there's so many layers, so
Yes.
many negative layers to Extraction and to Ruthless
Mm-hmm.
that I don't encourage you to watch Ruthless. I see
Quiz the
Quez
mind.
said I will not watch Ruthless, and I'm with you. Please don't, because no. So
Yeah,
that
he
was
also
it.
said this is good talking, so thank you. Thank you. He said this
Oh,
is good.
thank you. Good. This is good. We're going to be doing this every Sunday around this time. So you will hear from us. We'll have different topics, and all that. So you will, if you tune in every Sunday, you will see us having very good dialogue about various topics. And it's not always going to be about race. It's not always going to be about, it's not. It's going to be various topics, world topics that we deem necessary to discuss.
Mm-hmm. So Nick Davis, I know him, and he's just checking in to see what we're discussing. So right now we're talking about the what you watch and what you listen to, and guarding your spirit, especially during the time where people are in the house. I'm always talking to the TV. I'm that person who be
I
talking
believe
to
in.
TV. And I'm like, one thing I've noticed about TV shows, and it doesn't even have to be on some negative, ultra violent stuff, but one thing I noticed about TV shows is, have you noticed that work never really fits in with relationships? Like marriages. You don't rarely do you see positive marriage or relationship role models in TV shows. There's always like either somebody's having an affair on the side, or they're not affectionate. Like they do things for one another, but leave in the morning without a hug or a kiss. And I guess I'm overly affectionate. I don't take out the trash without kissing my husband. Like that's just me though. And I'm like,
Oh, look at you, so
see,
cute. Damn. You better be.
because I think like you never know. One of the reasons why I think I started to do that is you never know when your last moment is going to be. And so I always want it to be enjoyable, and um, I always want my spouse, my partner, my husband to know that I love him. And so I think just planting those seeds over and over again, especially in a time where we're in the house and we're not around other people all the time, and domestic violence is on the rise, and all these things are happening while people are locked inside. People are killing one another in their own
And
family.
themselves. And suicides are
And
rising as
suicide.
well.
And
People
so
are killing themselves.
yes, and so I think it now is even more important to pay attention to what you're watching and how you're feeling, and different songs that, one thing I remember watching like a documentary about like gangsters and stuff. And these gangsters would get high, do all kind of drugs, and listen to, interestingly enough, like DMX, and listen to like these people who had these very explicit lyrics before they would go and commit these crimes. And so that should tell you something right there, that our thought processes and that our brain process and our mental health is affected by the images that we see, and also our connectedness, right? The way we connect with other people in relationship, and the way that we model our own lives. Because there's some people, Shay and I was having this conversation before this morning. There's some people who are trying to live out what they see on television, like some people who watch the Desperate Housewives and these kinds of things. I'm not gonna say those shows are bad, but those shows also sell you a false image of reality.
Mm-hmm.
They also shape the way
So,
you think about marriage.
absolutely. And I feel that watching those shows, like you said, during a pandemic when we're trapped in the house, is kind of like a double. It's doubly scary, because if you were watching it when you were going about your daily lives, it's already bad. But just
Mhm.
imagine teleworking, because most people are teleworking, and
Yeah.
then you got to think about the ones that unfortunately have filed for unemployment. There's some people that don't have a job.
Hmm.
So they're even more so stuck at home, and they're not even teleworking. It's like each negative thing in your own life as it is. There's all these negatives already existing in your life.
Right.
Then on top of that, you're watching shows that can feed more negativity into your life. So it's
Right.
like, Well, doggone, you can't win for losing because you already are facing negativity in your own life, and then you're gonna feed your own spirit with more.
Right.
Like, don't
Yeah.
do it.
Ooh,
Don't.
I just felt a connection to 2 shows ago, when we were on IG Live and we were talking about bisexuality and the church, or gay people and the church. Doesn't this go to that too? Because I feel like some of our parents' generation, or even some of our own generation, and some of our grandparents' generation, they view gays like what they've seen on television. And Nick Davis said that, I agree, sadly, the script of good man or woman doesn't sell as well. And I think,
It doesn't. Drama sells.
mhm. And I
Yes,
think
Nicholas. Hmm.
Alex says, Ratchet Monday shows, and Quez totally agrees. And so yes, I just think that, oh, the danger in that. Let's say, so you got the news that's saying this negative stuff, the TV shows are saying this negative, your music is ratchet. Drake, all he's saying about is bad relationships. You know, like you got all you got
Honey,
all
let me.
this. You can start to think, that that's how everyone in the world is. You can
Mhm.
start to think that, like, and I think some of it, this ties into what we were talking about earlier too. All black people are like this, all white people are like this, all Muslims are like this. I think, all of those things feed into the narratives, or the way that we think about people and our worldview, especially um, if they're not analyzed, and if you're not
Yeah.
aware. Because I notice these things at every show. I'd be like, he did not kiss his wife before he left for work. What's up with that? I'd be like, mm-mm. I'd be talking to the TV, like, no.
I can see. I need to come over there and watch a movie with you because I want to see you having conversations with
Yeah,
TVs
yeah,
because you're very animated and very extra, as you call yourself.
yeah,
So I just want to be around you when you watch a movie with you and Shay because
yeah.
you probably be yelling, screaming, and everything else. Which I mean, it's animation. It's
Yeah.
funny, but yes, I. But to your point, it's very important to not feed yourself with more negativity than what's already there. Um, than what you're already facing in your life because it's not necessary and that's why I cut the show off and
Mhm,
I don't really listen to rap. I'm an R&B. Well, as you know, I'm R&B.
mhm.
I'm into R&B, and you already know my girl Brandy's everything. So
Okay, yeah.
that's the kind of the vibes I want. I want those Lettucey vibes, Tamar Braxton vibes, where they're singing about love and
Mhm.
companionship, and those type of songs is what I want to hear. Like
Right.
Kelly Rowland's Coffee. I mean, like I want to hear stuff. I want to hear that. I don't want to be hearing no, I'm gonna kill you and and shoot up the club and all. Like, I don't really want to hear none of that with these rappers.
Or,
I just
or
don't.
degrading women,
Or degrading women, yes.
like some of these people, some of our co-workers, some of the people we know have daughters, and they listen to that music. And I'm just like, how does that fit, you know? And or people who have children, would you feel okay if your children listen to it? And my only desire is to get people to look inward and to be more analytical of what they're bringing in, because these things are affecting us now. And there is a reason why they show black and brown bodies being, murdered, why they continue to put these things on repeat. And there are, like, hip hop music is everywhere. There's probably more white people who listen to rap music than there are black. Like, it's everywhere. It's at all the sporting events. You can't go anywhere. It's on news channels. Like,
Hmm.
hip hop music
Hey,
is.
Alvin. I'm speaking to Alvin. Simeon. You remember Simeon from EOA school? I don't know if you remember him.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, he was in EOA school with us,
What
but
if?
he on.
Because I feel like the spirit is
And
lit.
we got a few more minutes because we don't want to be on here forever. So we got 5 more minutes, and then we gonna go.
I feel like the spirit is lifting, and we had a great conversation, and I thank everybody for participating. What if we spend the last few minutes talking about solutions? Because we talked about the problems. One of the solutions, we just talked about a solution, being more analytical with what you're watching and being aware of what you're taking in. But what about, some more solutions to the topics we discussed earlier? What do you think about that?
Yes. Well, I kind of said that on our well, we were on IG a while back, and I said I want solutions because I feel like solutions is what drives the change that can impact the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I feel. What is
Oh,
you say next to me the very first day we all met.
yes.
Oh, now you remember?
I do.
Okay.
What's up, Alan?
Okay. But so well, I'm gonna give a solution for both parts. The part we were talking about with Ahmaud in the KKK hood, not mask, KKK hood, and then a solution for the shows and stuff that we intake, stuff that we watch. So I feel like a solution with the Ahmaud murder and the KKK hood is to. I'm gonna really speak for the Black community in particular, and I hate to separate us, but I'm gonna just speak to the minorities right now. That we need to come together and really understand. Remain resilient. Remain resilient through this process. Remain resilient through all the things that we're going through in the pandemic, the stuff we're finding out in the media. And yeah, I'm gonna go with what Alex said, voting in November. Voting in November, because he said vote in November. He says that will be the ultimate change. And I feel like that can solve a lot, but I want to speak more in terms of like what we can do that we have a little bit more power in. Because at the end of the day, we vote. Our votes do count, but there's an electoral college and all that, and that's applied and all that. But what we can do as a community is just remain resilient, and that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I always try to, a lot of you all don't know me, but I'm all about positivity, and I'm all about, like, if you follow my social media on Facebook, I'm posting a picture of myself being silly, or I'm posting maybe a Flashback Friday photo or something like that. But just being positive and optimistic in the midst of all of this, and reading the Bible.
You better read your scripture. Yeah.
Read the scriptures, because it really does help put a lot of perspective as to what is going on in this pandemic. It really, really does. So that's my solution for that. And then the solution for the movies and the shows we watch, the solution is to avoid them. Avoid them. Do not watch them, because you don't want to feed your brain with any other negativity. Even after this pandemic is over, don't do it. Don't do it. Find a way to find those shows that are uplifting, because there are some good movies out there. The ones that are not getting the recognition are the ones that were low budget. If you think about these low budget films that are out there that didn't make it to the theater, or the ones that only go to Netflix but didn't hit the big screen, those movies actually have depth to them. I was watching a movie, and I'll leave it at this. There's an Asian movie. Yes, Asians are on all of the only white person in there was Keanu Reeves, who I love. It's called, on Netflix, Always Be My Maybe. Check out that movie. It's an Asian movie, and it's a very positive movie too. It's very uplifting, and it's Asian driven. So Always Be My Maybe. Keanu Reeves is a guest star in it, but it's a phenomenal movie. It came out last year with Ali Wong and Randall Park as the stars. So check it out. So that's it for me.
Okay, let me just read a couple comments, and then I'll get mine. Najeli says accountability from all parties. And then you already talked about Alex saying vote in November. Nick Davis says general solution, keep surrounding ourselves with great people who hold each other accountable and help one another when we stumble. Amen to that.
Ooh, that is good.
Chris Clinton is watching, and Chris Williams says positive affirmation and being a mentor. I agree with all of that. And I want to do what you did and talk to the Black community as well. I think I prayed over this, that the message would be received too. I think we have to look inward into ourselves and acknowledge the fact that we have to be a little bit different, and that we do have to be better in a lot of ways, because the system of white privilege is not set up for us. It doesn't mean that we can't experience success, but this is just the reality that we, and I'll make it plain. When you were in high school, did y'all have the Gothic people? Like, and I wonder, like, so how many of those Gothic people, unless they went to become like a tattoo artist or something like that, but do you know any famous Gothic people really? Maybe like Marilyn Manson, I don't know. But my point is that is Gothic. If you were Gothic, you had the dark hair, the pale skin, the dramatic eyes, and all
I
that.
have Gothic friends.
Okay, and I'm not saying that those people are not going to be successful, but what I am saying, we do live in a place, right? There is a business attire, is there not?
Mm-hmm.
So the reality of it is we are judged based on our appearance. And if we already start at a negative because of the color of our skin, then we should understand that. And it sounds like because I know how this might sound, but I mean it from every positive way that we can change these outlooks, but we have to be willing to walk taller, to walk more responsible, and to walk with class, and understand the trueness of all of this is that we have the power. For example, like we're being gunned down and police are saying, I feared for my life. Well, what are you so afraid of? Where does that fear come from? Is it because you know who we really are? Because when you read in them scriptures, first of all, the scientific theory of race is BS. It does not exist. We all came from one person. And science has already proven that all life has started in Africa. So we know where the human genome, the 100% human genome, comes from. And so if our people get in our book, which is the Holy Bible, and find our identity, when we look at scripture, we always find that God's people was always set apart. They always look different. He said, don't shave the edges of your beard. You're not supposed to be bald headed. Like that's what it talks about in the Old Testament. And these were the ways
Mm-hmm.
they were signified. And I'll wrap up with this. Is it not interesting? Because I think there's a whole lot of deception. And this is a conversation we should definitely have another time, but it will drive my point home. Is it not interesting that Christians worship a Jewish Messiah, but they don't accept his Jewishness? Jews, right, follow all the stuff in the Old Testament and follow,
Mm-hmm.
even more than maybe we could argue what's required. But they don't accept Jesus as the true Jew Messiah. Is that
Yeah.
not interesting? So the idea of what I'm saying is be careful who you align yourself with, get in there, find the truth, establish the truth in you, and remove the distractions from what's going on in the world, from what's going on in the music industry, and from the negative programming out there that tries to tell you, time to go back to Egypt. Like, why are we going back to Egypt? Like our people were slaves in Egypt. So get in there,
Mm-hmm.
find your identity, and once you find your identity and you find the truth, it will help to make the things that matter matter. Like, because there's some black people who may feel like I should be able to sag my pants if I want to. I should be able to wear Jordans and do this if I want to. You can. But are these things beneficial to you and your future? In the end of it all, does it really matter if you got 26-inch rims on your vehicle? Because that's a statement. Do you really need? I know what that's like because guess what? I came from that. I came from having 24-inch rims on my Chrysler 300, and I matched the description for an armed robbery. And so there's certain things that we can do. So guess what? Ask me, do I got rims on my car now? No. So we need to grow and mature because, and I'll say this, and I'll get a benediction for real. So I asked my dad in a conversation, I said, he's nearly 60 years old. And I said, what has really changed in your lifetime? And his answer, it didn't really shock me, but it was just as I expected. He said, not much. And he was talking about in the Black experience, in the church experience. And so I think there's more that we can tap into in the Black experience that we have not. And I personally believe that voting in November is not really the answer. And when we look at the candidates and what we're offered to choose between, I don't think it's that hard to see that it's not voting, but it's us banding together. And I think it's the church actually being what it's supposed to be. The Black church, not to separate it out, but specifically the Black church, being what we're supposed to be and helping one another, like Nick said, and picking one another up when we stumble. And there needs to be an assault on our lack of knowledge. An assault on our lack of knowledge. Let's teach. When I was talking with Trey yesterday, he was talking about we need to teach about the credit system, teach about managing your money, teach about the desires that you have. So yeah, you could go buy that brand new Benz, but you're gonna have a 20% APR. You know what I mean? Like, why not buy a cheaper vehicle right now? And so that way you build your credit up. Then when you buy it, you can get a 2% interest rate. Like things like that. We need to be a more interconnected community, because I'll say this, when I was in Georgia, that's what I realized about white people. When I was in Georgia and I was doing color guard at all these functions with cadets, when that was a prior cadet, he's a lieutenant now, but Stephen Wexler. Like when I was in Georgia, I noticed that white people took care of one another. Like they made sure if John didn't have any kids, he made sure that Sam was taking over his business, and they promoted one another. And if Sam messed up, guess what? Like, here's another chance. And so we need to work on creating that for ourselves. But I don't think we can do it through teaching necessarily just economics. We have to find our identity and teach that.
I love it. That's a good way to close out. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. I know that Sunday is Mother's Day. I know most of you all have probably already said Happy Mother's Day to your mothers. My mother passed away at a young age, but I still send her love up in heaven. So you all have a wonderful time, wonderful day today. We will be back next week. We will have some new topics. So come on back to us. We will be here. So this will be a weekly thing that we do. And just so you know, it may not always be on a Sunday. We may change it up a little bit, but for right now, it will be on Sundays until we kind of develop a little bit more, and we may have some other days that we go on live. So, and we will definitely let you know in advance. So, thank you all so much, and I'm happy that I was able to be authentic with you guys, because I'm not really a live person. I'm not a person that speaks publicly like this. This is new for me. But I will definitely be doing it more because Brandon, helped me gain that confidence to do it. So thank you all so much, and we will see you next week.
Yes, and I just wanted to say, if you enjoyed the conversation, please share it. I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do these and why we wanted to come to Facebook, so that you'd be able to replay it, and people can see your comments. And I love the fact that people were interactive and gave comments that we could talk about, and they gave us stuff that we didn't know about the facts regarding the Ahmaud Arbery case. Stephen Weckler said he loved the shout out and miss you, hope all is well, and it is. And say what's up to Q. I think he's over in Egypt now. But yeah, so we'll be here next week, and I pray that you were blessed by it.
All right. Bye, y'all.